Dr. Keisha Williams adjusted her rearview mirror and checked the time on her dashboard. She was running a few minutes late for her dinner appointment with her mother, but the evening traffic through Riverside Heights was lighter than usual. The tree-lined streets of the upscale neighborhood always reminded her of her childhood dreams of success. Now, at 38, she had achieved more than she ever imagined possible. Her black BMW sedan purred quietly as she navigated the familiar turns toward her mother's house. Keisha had bought the car last year after receiving tenure at the university. It was a reward to herself for years of hard work, late nights studying, and building her career from nothing. She smiled, thinking about her mother's reaction when she first saw the car. "My baby done good," her mother had said with tears in her eyes. The red and blue lights appeared suddenly in her mirror. Keisha felt her stomach drop, but she remained calm. She had done nothing wrong. Her speed was well within the limit. She had used her turn signals, and her registration was current. She pulled over slowly and safely, putting on her hazard lights and placing her hands clearly on the steering wheel. Officer Danny Martinez stepped out of his patrol car with purpose. He had been watching the BMW for 3 blocks, convinced that something was not right. In his 12 years on the force, he had developed what he called street instincts. A young black woman driving an expensive car through this neighborhood at this time of evening raised red flags for him. Martinez approached the driver's side window, with his hand resting on his service weapon. The woman inside looked composed, almost too composed for someone who had just been pulled over. Her clothes looked expensive too. Designer jacket, nice jewelry. It all seemed suspicious to him. "License and registration," Martinez said curtly, not bothering with pleasantries. Keisha reached slowly for her purse, announcing each movement. "I'm reaching for my wallet now, officer." She had learned these careful behaviors from her criminal justice courses and her years as a prosecutor. She knew how quickly traffic stops could escalate. "Why are you in this neighborhood?" Martinez asked while examining her documents. "I'm visiting my mother, sir. She lives on Oak Street." Keisha kept her voice steady and respectful. Martinez looked at the license again. Dr. Keisha Williams, age 38. The address listed was in a middle-class area across town, not in Riverside Heights. "Your license says you live somewhere else. What's your real business here?" "As I mentioned, I'm visiting my mother. She moved to Oak Street 2 years ago." Keisha reached into her purse again, moving slowly. "I have her address written down, if you need to verify." "Keep your hands where I can see them," Martinez snapped, his voice rising. "Don't reach for anything unless I tell you to." Keisha immediately placed her hands back on the steering wheel. Her heart was beating faster now, but she maintained her calm exterior. She had prosecuted cases involving officers like this one. She knew the type. "Step out of the vehicle," Martinez ordered. "May I ask why, officer?" "You're acting suspicious. I need to search your car." Keisha knew her rights. "Officer, I haven't committed any traffic violation. I don't consent to a search of my vehicle. May I ask what probable cause you have?" Martinez felt his anger rising. Criminals always tried to play lawyer with him. "I don't need your consent. You're acting nervous and evasive. That's probable cause enough." "I'm not acting nervous, sir. I'm simply exercising my constitutional rights. Get out of the car now or I'll arrest you for obstruction." Keisha had no choice. She stepped out slowly, keeping her hands visible. Martinez immediately began searching her car, tossing items from her purse onto the ground. Her university ID, business cards, and professional materials scattered across the pavement. An elderly white woman walking her dog stopped to watch from across the street. She seemed troubled by what she was seeing. Martinez noticed her and felt irritated by the attention. "Ma'am, move along. Police business," he called to the woman. The elderly woman, Mrs. Helen Carter, did not move. She had lived in this neighborhood for 40 years and had never seen an officer behave this way during a routine traffic stop. Something felt very wrong about the situation. Keisha watched as Martinez continued his search. He was clearly looking for anything he could use to justify his actions. When he found nothing illegal, his frustration became obvious. "What do you do for work?" Martinez demanded. "I'm a professor at the university. I teach criminal justice." Martinez scoffed. "Right, and I'm the police chief. How does a person like you afford a car like this? A person like me? Keisha's voice remained steady, but the insult was clear to both of them. You know what I mean? This car costs more than most people make in a year. Officer, I earned my doctorate in criminal justice from Georgetown University. I was a federal prosecutor for 8 years before joining the university faculty. I purchased this vehicle with money I earned through hard work and education. Martinez felt embarrassed by her credentials, but his pride would not let him back down. If anything, her education made him more resentful. Federal prosecutor? Sure you were. Got any proof of that? Keisha reached slowly for her briefcase in the back seat. I have my bar card and university faculty ID if you'd like to see them. I told you not to reach for anything. Martinez grabbed her arm roughly. You're under arrest for resisting arrest and disorderly conduct. Mrs. Carter gasped from across the street. The professor had done nothing to resist or cause disorder. She quickly pulled out her phone and began recording. Officer, I have not resisted anything. I have been completely cooperative, Keisha said as Martinez forced her hands behind her back. You've been argumentative and evasive from the start. That's disorderly conduct in my book. As Martinez placed the handcuffs on her wrists, Keisha remained calm. She had seen this before in her prosecutorial work, but experiencing it personally was different. The humiliation was intense, but she would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. Officer Martinez, she said, reading his name tag. I am recording this interaction on my phone, which is in my front pocket. I want you to know that I will be filing a complaint about this arrest. Martinez reached into her pocket and confiscated her phone. Evidence, he said with a smirk. Mrs. Carter approached cautiously. Officer, I saw this whole thing. This lady didn't do anything wrong. She was polite and cooperative the entire time. Martinez turned on the elderly woman. Ma'am, if you don't leave immediately, I'll arrest you for interfering with police business. Mrs. Carter stepped back but continued recording with her phone. She had gotten everything on video and she planned to make sure the right people saw it. As Martinez led Keisha to his patrol car, she held her head high. She had faced worse challenges in her life and overcome them. This would be no different. What Martinez did not know was that his actions tonight would soon change both of their lives forever. 3 weeks later, Officer Danny Martinez sat confidently in the witness chair at the municipal courthouse. He had testified in court many times before, and judges usually believed police officers over defendants. Today would be no different. He straightened his uniform and looked directly at the prosecutor handling the case. Officer Martinez, please tell the court what happened on the evening of March 15th, said Assistant District Attorney Karen Murphy. Martinez cleared his throat and began his rehearsed story. I was on patrol in the Riverside Heights area when I observed a black BMW sedan driving erratically through the neighborhood. The driver was speeding and failed to use turn signals properly. Dr. Keisha Williams sat at the defendant's table with her attorney, public defender Lisa Thompson. Keisha had wanted to hire a private lawyer, but she decided to use the public defender system to make a point about equal justice. She listened carefully to Martinez's testimony, taking notes of every lie he told. The defendant appeared nervous and evasive when I approached her vehicle, Martinez continued. She was sweating and her hands were shaking. When I asked for her license and registration, she became argumentative and hostile. Judge Patricia Collins listened from the bench. She was an experienced judge who had heard many similar cases over her 20 years on the bench. Something about the officer's testimony seemed rehearsed, but she kept her expression neutral. What happened next, Officer Martinez? The prosecutor asked. The defendant refused to cooperate with my lawful orders. When I asked her to step out of the vehicle, she began shouting and using profanity. She told me I had no right to stop her and that she would have my job. Keisha's attorney made notes on her legal pad. The story Martinez was telling bore no resemblance to what actually happened. She had watched the video Mrs. Carter provided, and it clearly showed Dr. Williams remaining calm and respectful throughout the entire encounter. Did you feel threatened by the defendant's behavior? Murphy asked. Absolutely. She was aggressive and confrontational. I feared for my safety and the safety of other citizens in the area. That's when I decided to place her under arrest for disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Martinez felt good about his testimony. He had painted a picture of a dangerous, uncooperative suspect who needed to be arrested for public safety. In his experience, judges rarely questioned police officers' accounts of events. "No further questions," Murphy said, returning to her seat. Lisa Thompson stood up for cross-examination. She was young but sharp, and she had done her homework on this case. "Officer Martinez, you testified that my client was driving erratically. Did you use your radar gun to measure her speed?" "No, but I could tell she was speeding by observing her vehicle." "So you have no actual evidence that she was exceeding the speed limit?" Martinez shifted in his chair. "My training and experience allow me to estimate vehicle speeds accurately." "I see. You also testified that she failed to use turn signals. Did you record this traffic stop on your dashboard camera?" "The camera was malfunctioning that day." Thompson raised an eyebrow. "How convenient. Officer Martinez, how many times has your dashboard camera malfunctioned in the past year?" "I don't keep track of technical issues with equipment. Let me help refresh your memory. According to department records, you've reported camera malfunctions in 17 traffic stops this year. That's more than any other officer in your department. Don't you find that suspicious?" Martinez felt sweat forming on his forehead. "Equipment fails sometimes, that's not unusual." "You testified that Dr. Williams was argumentative and used profanity. Can you tell us exactly what words she used?" Martinez hesitated. He had not expected such detailed questions. "She used various curse words and spoke in a threatening manner." "What specific threatening words did she use?" "I don't remember the exact words, but her tone was clearly threatening." Thompson walked closer to the witness stand. "Officer Martinez, did you know that Dr. Williams is a professor of criminal justice at the State University?" "She claimed to be a professor, but people lie about their jobs all the time." "Did you examine her university faculty identification card?" "I may have seen some kind of ID, but fake IDs are common." Thompson returned to her table and picked up a document. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence Dr. Williams's curriculum vitae, which shows her extensive education and professional background." Judge Collins accepted the document and began reading. Her eyebrows rose as she reviewed Keisha's impressive credentials. Georgetown Law School, 8 years as a federal prosecutor, numerous published articles on criminal justice reform. "Officer Martinez," Thompson continued, "did you know that Dr. Williams was formerly a federal prosecutor? Like I said, people make false claims about their backgrounds. So when she presented you with her bar card from the State Bar Association, you assumed it was fake?" Martinez realized he was trapped. "I don't recall seeing a bar card." Thompson walked back to her table and retrieved another item. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence this video recording of the traffic stop, provided by Mrs. Helen Carter, a witness to the events." The prosecutor objected, but Judge Collins overruled her. The video began playing on the courtroom's monitor. Everyone could see Dr. Williams remaining calm and polite throughout the encounter, while Martinez became increasingly aggressive and hostile. The courtroom was silent as they watched Martinez searching the car without permission and arresting Dr. Williams despite her cooperative behavior. The video clearly contradicted every major point of his testimony. "Officer Martinez," Thompson said after the video ended, "does this video accurately show what happened during the traffic stop?" Martinez stared at the screen, his face red with embarrassment and anger. "The video doesn't show everything. It doesn't capture the defendant's threatening tone or her aggressive body language. The video shows Dr. Williams speaking respectfully and keeping her hands visible at all times. Where exactly do you see threatening behavior? You have to understand police work. Sometimes threats are subtle." Judge Collins had seen enough. She had been a judge long enough to recognize perjury when she heard it. The officer's testimony contradicted the video evidence completely. When it was time for Dr. Williams to testify, she walked to the witness stand with dignity and poise. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. "Dr. Williams," her attorney began, "please tell the court about your educational background." Keisha spoke clearly and professionally. "I earned my bachelor's degree from Howard University. then my law degree from Georgetown University Law Center. I worked as a federal prosecutor for 8 years before joining the university faculty, where I now teach courses on criminal justice and constitutional law. She continued, I have published research on police accountability and community relations. I have trained law enforcement officers on proper procedures and constitutional rights. I understand both sides of police work. What happened during your encounter with Officer Martinez? Keisha recounted the events calmly and accurately. She explained how she had followed proper procedures during the traffic stop, how she had remained respectful despite Martinez's increasingly hostile behavior, and how she had clearly stated her credentials and background. Dr. Williams, did you resist arrest or behave in a disorderly manner? Absolutely not. I remained calm and cooperative throughout the encounter. I know that traffic stops can be dangerous situations, and I did everything possible to keep the interaction peaceful and professional. Why do you think Officer Martinez arrested you? Keisha paused, choosing her words carefully. I believe Officer Martinez made assumptions about me based on my race and gender. When those assumptions proved wrong, he felt he had to justify his actions by fabricating charges. The prosecutor's cross-examination was brief and ineffective. The video evidence and Dr. Williams' credentials spoke for themselves. As closing arguments concluded, Judge Collins prepared to render her verdict. The contrast between the officer's false testimony and the defendant's truthful account was stark. Justice was about to be served, but Officer Martinez had no idea how dramatically his life was about to change. Judge Patricia Collins removed her glasses and looked directly at Officer Martinez. The courtroom was completely silent as everyone waited for her decision. She had been thinking carefully about everything she had seen and heard during the trial. Officer Martinez, Judge Collins began, her voice firm and clear. I have been on this bench for 20 years. In that time, I have heard testimony from hundreds of police officers. Most of them have served their communities with honor and integrity. Martinez shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He could feel sweat forming under his uniform collar. However, your testimony today was not only inconsistent with the video evidence presented, but it was also deliberately false. You lied under oath about the events of March 15th. The prosecutor, Karen Murphy, looked down at her papers. She knew the case was lost, but hearing a judge directly accuse a police officer of perjury was still shocking. Dr. Williams, the judge continued, turning to face Keisha. Your testimony was clear, consistent, and supported by the evidence. The video recording shows that you behaved with remarkable composure and professionalism during what must have been a frightening and humiliating experience. Keisha sat straight in her chair, maintaining her dignity as she had throughout the entire ordeal. Therefore, I find the defendant not guilty on all charges. The charges of resisting arrest and disorderly conduct are hereby dismissed. A few people in the courtroom gallery clapped quietly. Mrs. Carter, who had provided the crucial video evidence, smiled with relief. Judge Collins was not finished. Furthermore, I am ordering an immediate internal affairs investigation into Officer Martinez's conduct during this arrest. I am also recommending that he receive mandatory training on constitutional rights, proper arrest procedures, and cultural sensitivity. Martinez felt his face burning with embarrassment and anger. He had never been publicly humiliated like this before. Other officers in the courtroom were looking at him with a mixture of surprise and disappointment. Officer Martinez, your behavior on March 15th was unprofessional, unconstitutional, and unacceptable. You have brought shame to your uniform and your department. I hope you will use this experience to become a better police officer. Judge banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. As people began filing out of the courtroom, Martinez gathered his papers with shaking hands. His partner, Officer Rick Johnson, approached him cautiously. Danny, you okay? Rick asked quietly. Martinez stood up quickly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm fine. This whole thing was a setup. That judge was biased from the start. Rick looked uncomfortable. He had watched the video evidence like everyone else in the courtroom. It was clear that Martinez had lied about what happened during the traffic stop. Maybe you should talk to someone about this, Rick suggested. The department has counseling services if you need to. I don't need counseling, Martinez snapped. I need people to stop treating criminals like heroes. Dr. Williams was shaking hands with her attorney when Martinez walked past her table. She looked up at him with calm, professional eyes. Officer Martinez, she said quietly, I hope you can learn from this experience. Police work is an honorable profession when it's done properly. Martinez stopped and stared at her. Even after everything that had happened, she was still speaking. To him respectfully. It made him even angrier. Don't lecture me about police work, lady. You don't know anything about what we deal with on the streets. Actually, I know quite a bit about law enforcement. I've worked closely with police officers throughout my career as a prosecutor and professor. Good officers are some of the finest people I know. Martinez wanted to say something cruel, but too many people were watching. He walked away without another word. Outside the courthouse, Rick caught up with Martinez again. They walked toward their patrol cars in silence for a few minutes. Danny, I need to tell you something, Rick said finally. What now? It's about the new police chief. The announcement came in this morning while we were in court. Martinez stopped walking. What announcement? They picked someone for the chief position. Captain Rodriguez was just the interim chief, remember? The city council finally made their decision about who gets the permanent job. Martinez had forgotten about the chief selection process. Their old chief had retired 6 months ago, and Captain Lisa Rodriguez had been running the department temporarily while the city council searched for a replacement. Who did they pick? Martinez asked. Please tell me it's not some politician with no real police experience. Rick looked nervous. Actually, it's someone from outside the department, someone with a lot of experience in federal law enforcement. Great. Another outsider who thinks they know how to run our department better than people who've actually worked here for years. Danny, there's something else. The new chief starts Monday morning. There's going to be a big meeting for the whole department. Martinez kicked a small stone across the parking lot. Let me guess. They're going to lecture us about community relations and sensitivity training. Rick was quiet for a moment. The new chief has some pretty impressive credentials. Graduate degree from Georgetown, 8 years as a federal prosecutor, worked with the FBI on major cases. Sounds like another ivory tower academic who's never worked a real street patrol in their life. I don't know, Danny. Word is that this person has real experience with police reform and accountability programs. Martinez felt a chill run down his spine. After what had just happened in court, the last thing he needed was a reform-minded chief. Looking over his shoulder. What's the new chief's name? Martinez asked. Rick hesitated. They're keeping some details private until the official announcement Monday morning. Security reasons, they said. They reached their patrol cars. Martinez got behind the wheel and started the engine. Through his windshield, he could see Dr. Williams walking to her BMW with her attorney. She looked confident and professional, just like she had in the courtroom. Rick, whatever happens with this new chief, I'm not changing how I do my job. I've been a good cop for 12 years, and I'm not going to let some outsider tell me how to police my own community. Rick nodded, but he looked worried. Just be careful, Danny. After what happened in court today, you might want to keep a low profile for a while. Martinez drove away without responding. He was already planning how he would present his side of the story to the new chief. He would explain that Dr. Williams was a troublemaker who had used her connections to make him look bad in court. He would emphasize his years of faithful service to the department and the community. What Martinez did not know was that his troubles were just beginning. The new police chief had already been briefed on the court case and the internal affairs investigation that Judge Collins had ordered. More importantly, the new chief had a very personal interest in making sure that officers like Martinez learned to treat all citizens with respect and dignity. Monday morning was going to bring changes to the police department that Martinez could never have imagined. His comfortable world of unquestioned authority was about to be turned completely upside down. As Martinez drove home that evening, he felt confident that he could weather this storm just like he had handled other challenges in his career. He had no idea that the woman he had wrongfully arrested was about to become the most powerful person in his professional life. Monday morning arrived gray and cloudy, matching the mood inside the police department's main conference room. Every officer from all 3 shifts had been called in for the mandatory meeting to introduce their new police chief. The room buzzed, with quiet conversations as officers speculated about what changes were coming. Officer Danny Martinez sat in the back row with his usual group of friends. He had spent the weekend stewing about the court case and preparing himself for whatever liberal reforms the new chief might try to impose. Next to him sat Officer Rick Johnson, who had been unusually quiet all morning. "You okay, Rick?" Martinez asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Rick shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Just nervous about meeting the new boss, I guess." At the front of the room, Captain Lisa Rodriguez stood behind the podium, shuffling through her notes. She had been interim chief for 6 months and was relieved to finally hand over the responsibility to someone else. The job had been more stressful than she had expected, especially with all the recent community complaints about officer conduct. "Good morning, everyone," Rodriguez announced, calling the room to order. "Thank you all for being here today. I know some of you had to come in on your day off, and I appreciate your professionalism." The conversations died down as officers focused their attention on the captain. As you all know, the City Council has completed their search for our new permanent police chief. I want to introduce you to someone who brings an exceptional background to our department. Martinez leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. He was already preparing to dislike whoever walked through that door. "Our new chief holds a doctorate in criminal justice from Georgetown University," Rodriguez continued. "She served 8 years as a federal prosecutor, handling major cases involving organized crime, public corruption, and civil rights violations." A few officers exchanged glances. A prosecutor becoming a police chief was unusual, but not unheard of. She also worked as a special agent with the FBI, focusing on police misconduct cases and departmental reform programs. She has published extensively on community policing strategies and officer accountability measures. Martinez rolled his eyes. "Here we go with the accountability lectures," he whispered to the officer sitting next to him. Rodriguez continued reading from her notes. "She has received numerous awards for her work in law enforcement, including recognition from the Department of Justice for her efforts to improve police-community relations in several major cities." The room remained quiet as officers absorbed this information. The new chief's credentials were impressive, even to those who were skeptical about reform efforts. She is committed to maintaining the highest standards of professionalism while ensuring that our officers have the support and resources they need to serve our community effectively. Martinez was getting impatient. "Just tell us who it is already," he muttered under his breath. "Without further delay," Rodriguez said, "please, join me in welcoming our new police chief." The door at the side of the room opened, and Dr. Keisha Williams walked in wearing a crisp police chief's uniform. Her badges and insignia gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and she carried herself with the same quiet confidence she had displayed in the courtroom. The room fell completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Martinez felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. His mouth fell open, and the color drained from his face. The woman he had arrested, the woman he had lied about in court, the woman he had dismissed as just another troublemaker, was now wearing the uniform of his commanding officer. Rick Johnson looked sideways at his partner and saw Martinez gripping the arms of his chair so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Several other officers who had been in the courtroom recognized Dr. Williams immediately. Word of Martinez's humiliation had spread quickly through the department, and now everyone understood the significance of this moment. Chief Williams walked confidently to the podium and shook hands with Captain Rodriguez. She surveyed the room calmly, her eyes briefly meeting Martinez's shocked stare before moving on to other faces. "Good morning," Chief Williams said, her voice clear and professional. "I'm honored to serve as your new police chief, and I look forward to working with each of you to make our department the best it can be." Martinez felt dizzy. This could not be happening. There had to be some mistake. "I know that change can be difficult," the new chief continued, "but I want you to know that my goal is not to tear down what you've built here. My goal is to strengthen this department and improve our relationship with the community we serve." She, spoke for several minutes about her vision for the department, her commitment to supporting good officers, and her determination to hold everyone accountable to the highest standards. "I believe that most officers go to work every day wanting to do the right thing," she said. "When we fall short of that goal, it's usually because of inadequate training, poor supervision, or a culture that doesn't support excellence." Martinez tried to focus on her words, but his mind was reeling. How was this possible? How had the woman he arrested become his boss? "However," Chief Williams continued, her voice becoming slightly firmer, "I will not tolerate officers who bring shame to this badge or who violate the constitutional rights of the citizens we swore to protect." Her eyes swept across the room again, and this time they lingered on Martinez for just a moment longer than the others. "Every officer in this department will be held to the same high standard, regardless of how long they've been here or who they know. We serve the community, not the other way around." She outlined several immediate changes she planned to implement. All patrol officers would be required to activate their body cameras during every citizen interaction. A new civilian oversight committee would review all complaints against officers. Additional training would be provided on constitutional law, de-escalation techniques, and cultural sensitivity. "I know some of you may be concerned about these changes," she acknowledged, "but I want to assure you that good officers have nothing to fear from transparency and accountability. These measures will protect you as much as they protect the citizens you serve." Officer Johnson glanced at Martinez again. His partner looked like he might be sick. As the meeting continued, Chief Williams discussed her open-door policy, her commitment to officer safety and wellness, and her plans to improve community relations through regular public forums and neighborhood policing initiatives. "Finally," she said, "I want each of you to know that I have great respect for the challenges you face every day. Police work is difficult and often dangerous. You make split-second decisions that others have weeks to analyze and criticize." Martinez felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she would be reasonable after all. "But with that authority comes responsibility," she continued. "The community trusts us with extraordinary power, and we must never abuse that trust. When we make mistakes, we must acknowledge them, learn from them, and do better." She concluded her remarks by emphasizing that her door would always be open to any officer who had concerns or suggestions for improving the department. As the meeting ended and officers began filing out of the room, Martinez sat frozen in his chair. Rick had to nudge him to get him moving. "Danny, we need to go," Rick whispered urgently. Martinez stood up on unsteady legs. As he walked toward the door, he realized that Chief Williams was watching him. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and he saw something in her expression that he could not quite identify. It was not anger or revenge. It was something else entirely. Outside the conference room, officers gathered in small groups to discuss what they had just witnessed. Everyone knew about Martinez's court case, and everyone understood the incredible irony of the situation. Martinez walked to his car in a daze. His 12-year career, his comfortable position in the department, his whole professional world had just been turned upside down. The woman he had wronged was now the most powerful person in his working life. As he drove home, Martinez wondered if he should start looking for a new job. He had no idea that Chief Williams was already planning changes that would affect him directly, but not in the way he expected. The next few weeks brought changes to the police department faster than anyone had expected. Chief Williams wasted no time implementing her reform agenda, and every officer could feel the shift in atmosphere from the moment they walked into the I building each morning. Officer Danny Martinez arrived at work on Tuesday feeling like he was walking into enemy territory. Everything looked the same, but everything felt different. The same hallways, the same desks, the same break room coffee that always tasted burnt. But now there was tension in the air that had not been there before. "Martinez, the chief wants to see you in her office," Sergeant Tom Baker announced as soon as Martinez reached his desk. Martinez felt his stomach drop. "What for?" "She didn't say. Just told me to send you up as soon as you got in." The walk to the chief's office felt like the longest walk of Martinez's life. He had been dreading this moment since Monday's meeting. Other officers watched him as he passed their desks, some with sympathy, others with curiosity. Chief Williams' office was on the third floor, in the same space where Chief Robert Murphy had worked for 15 years before retiring. But the office looked completely different now. The old hunting pictures and police memorabilia had been replaced with framed law degrees, community service awards, and photos of Williams with various law enforcement officials. Martinez knocked on the doorframe. "You wanted to see me, Chief?" "Come in, Officer Martinez, please have a seat." Chief Williams sat behind her desk reviewing a thick file folder. Martinez could see his name written on the tab. She finished reading whatever document was in front of her, then looked up at him with the same calm professional expression she had worn in the courtroom. "Officer Martinez, I've been reviewing your personnel file and the internal affairs investigation that Judge Collins ordered after our court case." Martinez tried to keep his voice steady. "Yes, ma'am. The investigation has revealed some concerning patterns in your arrest record over the past 2 years. Would you like to explain why you've had 17 complaints filed against you by minority citizens?" "Chief, people file complaints all the time when they get arrested. It doesn't mean the complaints are valid." Williams opened another folder and spread several documents across her desk. "These aren't just routine complaints about being arrested. These are specific allegations about improper searches, false charges, and discriminatory treatment." Martinez could see copies of complaint forms, witness statements, and incident reports. Some of the names looked familiar. "For example," Williams continued, "last year you arrested Marcus Johnson for disorderly conduct after he questioned why you were searching his car. The charges were dropped when security camera footage showed that Mr. Johnson never raised his voice or acted aggressively. I remember that case. Johnson was being uncooperative and suspicious. According to the video evidence, Mr. Johnson simply asked to see your warrant before you searched his vehicle. That's his constitutional right." Williams picked up another document. 3 months ago, you arrested Maria Santos for resisting arrest. The only problem is that the body camera footage shows she never resisted. She simply asked you to explain why she was being detained." Martinez felt sweat forming under his collar. "Sometimes body cameras don't capture everything that happens. Officer Martinez, I've reviewed dozens of arrest videos from your cases. There's a clear pattern of you escalating situations unnecessarily and then filing false charges to justify your actions." The room was quiet except for the sound of air conditioning. Martinez knew he was in serious trouble, but he was not ready to admit wrongdoing. "Chief, with respect, you haven't worked street patrol in this city. You don't understand the challenges we face every day dealing with criminals and troublemakers." Williams leaned back in her chair. "Actually, I understand police work quite well. I've worked with officers in some of the most dangerous cities in America. I know the difference between good policing and bad policing." She stood up and walked to the window that overlooked the parking lot. "Good officers build trust in their communities. They treat every citizen with respect, regardless of race or economic status. They use force only when necessary, and they tell the truth in their reports and testimony." Martinez remained silent. "Bad officers do the opposite. They see certain communities as the enemy. They use their authority to intimidate and humiliate people. They lie to cover up their mistakes." She turned back to face Martinez. "Which type of officer are you?" "I'm a good officer. I've served this department faithfully for 12 years. "Then why did you lie under oath about our encounter?" The question hung in the air. Martinez had been dreading this confrontation, but now that it was happening, he felt strangely relieved. The pretending was over. "I thought you were just another troublemaker trying to make cops look bad," he said quietly. "So you decided to teach me a lesson by arresting me on false charges?" Martinez looked down at his hands. "I've seen it 100 times. People think they can disrespect police officers and get away with it. Officer Martinez, I showed you my credentials. I told you I was a professor and former prosecutor. I was polite and cooperative throughout our entire encounter. What exactly did I do to disrespect you?" Martinez could not answer. The truth was too embarrassing to admit out loud. "You arrested me because a successful black woman driving an expensive car in a nice neighborhood didn't fit your expectations," Williams said. "When reality challenged your assumptions, you decided to punish me for it." The silence stretched between them. "Here's what's going to happen," Williams continued. You're going to be reassigned to desk duty while Internal Affairs completes their investigation. You'll also be enrolled in mandatory training on constitutional law, cultural sensitivity, and proper arrest procedures. Martinez felt a mix of relief and humiliation. He had expected to be fired immediately. Furthermore, you'll be partnered with Officer Janet Kim when you return to patrol duty. She's one of our most experienced community policing officers, and she'll help you learn proper procedures. Officer Kim was known throughout the department for her by-the-book approach and excellent relationship with community leaders. Being partnered with her would be like having a supervisor watching his every move. Chief, I appreciate the second chance, but this isn't a second chance, Officer Martinez. This is your last chance. Any future complaints about your conduct will result in immediate termination. Any evidence of dishonesty or constitutional violations will end your career in law enforcement. Do I make myself clear? Yes, ma'am. I'm also requiring you to attend monthly meetings with community leaders from the neighborhoods you patrol. You need to understand the impact your actions have on real people's lives. Martinez nodded, though the thought of facing citizens he had wrongfully arrested made him uncomfortable. As he prepared to leave, Chief Williams stopped him with one final comment. Officer Martinez, I want you to succeed. Good police officers are valuable to their communities. But I won't allow anyone in this department to violate citizens' rights or bring shame to this badge. Martinez walked back to his desk in a daze. Other officers looked at him curiously, but no one asked what had happened. Word would spread soon enough that he was being investigated and reassigned. At his desk, Martinez found a stack of training materials and a note from the Internal Affairs investigator requesting an interview later that week. His comfortable world of unquestioned authority was officially over. For the first time since the traffic stop, Martinez began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. Chief Williams had treated him more fairly than he deserved, but her message was clear: change or leave. The reckoning he had avoided for 12 years had finally arrived. 6 months later, the Internal Affairs investigation was complete. Officer Danny Martinez sat in the same conference room where he had first seen Chief Williams, but this time he was alone with Captain Rodriguez and the IA investigator, Detective Sarah Brooks. Officer Martinez, Detective Brooks began. After a thorough investigation, we have found evidence of a pattern of misconduct spanning the past 3 years. This includes false arrests, discriminatory policing, and perjury in court. Testimony. Martinez stared at the table. The past 6 months had been the most difficult of his career. The desk duty assignment had been humiliating, but it had given him time to think about his actions and their consequences. We have documented 14 cases where you violated departmental policies and citizen constitutional rights, Brooks continued. 5 of these cases involved false testimony in court proceedings. Captain Rodriguez spoke next. Danny, you've been with this department for 12 years. I've known you since you were a rookie, but we can't ignore what the investigation has found. Martinez finally looked up. I know I made mistakes. The training sessions and community meetings have helped me understand that. This goes beyond mistakes, Brooks said firmly. This is a pattern of deliberate misconduct that has damaged our relationship with the community and cost the city thousands of dollars in settled lawsuits. The door opened, and Chief Williams entered the room. She took a seat across from Martinez, her expression serious but not angry. Officer Martinez, she said, I promised you that dishonesty and constitutional violations would end your career in law enforcement. The investigation has proven that you violated that trust repeatedly. Martinez nodded slowly. He had known this day was coming. Therefore, you are hereby terminated from the police department, effective immediately. You will also face criminal charges for perjury in multiple court cases. The words hit Martinez like a physical blow. Despite everything that had happened, part of him had hoped he could survive this investigation. Chief, I want you to know that the past 6 months have changed me. The community meetings, the training, working with Officer Kim, I finally understand how wrong I was. Chief Williams studied his face carefully. I believe you have learned something from this experience, Danny. But learning from mistakes doesn't erase the harm you caused to innocent people. She pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. Do you know Maria Santos is afraid to drive through certain parts of town because of how you treated her during that traffic stop? Marcus Johnson had to pay legal fees to fight the false charges you filed against him. Martinez felt shame wash over him. During the community meetings, he had heard similar stories from other people he had wronged, and Mrs. Helen Carter, the elderly woman who recorded our encounter, told me she never trusted police officers to treat people fairly until she saw how I handled becoming your supervisor. Chief Williams stood up. Your actions didn't just hurt individual citizens, Danny. They damaged the reputation of every good officer in this department. Detective Brooks handed Martinez a document. These are the criminal charges being filed against you. You have the right to an attorney. Martinez took the papers with shaking hands. His career was over and he might face jail time. After Martinez left the building for the last time, Chief Williams walked to her office and looked out the window at the community she served. The changes she had implemented were working, but there was still more work to do. The new body camera requirements had virtually eliminated complaints about officer misconduct. The Civilian Oversight Committee was building trust between the police and community leaders. Crime rates were actually dropping as more citizens were willing to cooperate with investigations. Officer Janet Kim knocked on the chief's door. Ma'am, you asked me to update you on the community policing initiatives. Come in, Janet. How are things going? Kim sat down and opened her notebook. The neighborhood meetings are really making a difference. We're getting more tips about criminal activity and people seem more comfortable approaching officers on the street. Any feedback about Officer Martinez's situation? Actually, yes. Several community members have told me they appreciate that. You held him accountable. They said it shows that good officers are willing to police their own. Chief Williams nodded. That had been one of her main goals, proving that law enforcement could address its own problems honestly. There's something else, Kim continued. Martinez has been attending the community meetings even after his termination. He's been apologizing to people he wronged and asking how he can make things right. This surprised Williams. Has he been causing problems? No, ma'am. If anything, people seem impressed by his willingness to face the consequences of his actions. Mrs. Santos said his apology helped her start trusting police officers again. 3 weeks later, Chief Williams was preparing for the monthly community forum when her secretary announced that someone wanted to speak with her. Danny Martinez is here to see you, Chief. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. Williams was curious. Send him in. Martinez entered her office looking different than she remembered. He seemed smaller, more humble. His usual swagger was gone. Chief Williams, thank you for seeing me. I know you don't owe me anything. What can I do for you, Danny? I wanted to thank you for how you handled my situation. You could have destroyed me completely, but you gave me a chance to learn and grow. Williams gestured for him to sit down. What are you doing now? I'm working at a community center in the neighborhood where I made some of my worst mistakes. I'm helping kids with their homework and trying to rebuild trust between young people and law enforcement. That sounds like meaningful work. It is. Chief, I also wanted to tell you that I'm pleading guilty to the perjury charges. My lawyer says I might avoid jail time if I cooperate with reforming police training programs. Williams was impressed by his honesty. That takes courage, Danny. I spent 12 years thinking I was a good cop because I made arrests and followed orders. But you taught me that being a good cop means serving the community with honor and integrity. They talked for a few more minutes about his community work and his plans for the future. When Martinez prepared to leave, he stopped at the door. Chief, there's one more thing. The community center wants to start a program where former officers who made mistakes come and talk to young people about making better choices. Would you support something like that? Williams considered the idea. If it's done properly, with proper oversight and community input, it could be valuable. Thank you, ma'am. And Chief, I'm proud to have served under a leader like you, even if it was only for a short time. After Martinez left, Chief Williams returned to her window. The view looked the same, but everything had changed. The department was stronger, the community was safer, and even former problem officers were finding ways to contribute positively to society. She thought about the traffic stop that had started this whole journey. What had begun as an act of injustice had ultimately led to positive transformation for everyone involved. The system had worked not because it was perfect, but because good people were willing to demand better from themselves and others. Chief Williams picked up the phone to call the community center. If Danny Martinez was serious about helping young people make better choices, she wanted to make sure he had the support he needed to succeed. Outside her window, Officer Kim was walking a beat in the neighborhood where Martinez had once caused so much trouble. Children waved at her from their front yards, and elderly residents stopped to chat about community concerns. It was exactly the kind of policing Chief Williams had envisioned when she took the job. Justice had been served, but more importantly, everyone had learned something valuable about dignity, accountability, and second chances.